All right, and we are live. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Webinar Wednesday here at Lulu. Of course, you guys have already just jumped off and telling us where you're from, which is always so exciting. I love seeing that. I have to give a special shout out to Terry, who is coming from Venice, Florida. Love Venice, Florida. My parents have a place there, so it's very near and dear to my heart. So hey to you, Terry. I hope you're enjoying the beach, and everybody else as well. Carol is from Cary. We are neighbors. That's great. We got some people from the UK, South Africa, the Bahamas. What a global audience we have today. This is fantastic. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining us, for taking the time out of your day to spend a little bit of time with us. So what we were talking about today are the things that you need to know before starting your e-commerce business. So a couple of housekeeping things before we get started. I dropped this and in the pinned sticky comment in the chat. But oh yes, red tide, I know, sad face for sure. Everyone who is signed up for the webinar will get a recording of the webinar. So we will send out the send out the link to the recording when we're done. I think it comes out about 24 hours afterwards. And then we will also post this to our YouTube channel as well. So if you go to YouTube and just search Lulu, Lulu Press or Lulu University is our kind of YouTube series. So either way, you can get there and find it. We usually post it to the YouTube channel about a day after the recording as well. So if you jumped in late or if you have to leave early, no worries, we have you covered. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and we can hop into it and we will take questions at the end. So don't worry about that. We are here to help. All right, sharing my screen now. Okay, so I am joined today by Sarah Gilbert. Sarah, can you see my screen?
I can. Hi, everybody.
Hi. Okay, so we're jumping in with 5 things you need to know before starting your e-commerce book business. So a little bit to get started. We are Lulu, so I hope that is not a shock to anyone who is joined us today. We don't sell leggings, we make books. So if you were here to start your e-commerce legging business, we don't have any information for you, unfortunately. But a little bit about us to get started. If you're not familiar, Lulu is actually a word meaning a remarkable person, object, or idea. We were founded in 2002 by Bob Young, who is of Red Hat notoriety, if you are familiar with that company. And we are a free-to-use publishing platform. We published over 1 million books and paid out over $107 million in author revenue. So a staggering number. I get caught up every time I see it or try to read it out loud. And then we have our mission statement here, which is that we are dedicated to making the world a better place, one book at a time, through sustainable practices, innovative print-on-demand products, and a commitment to excellent service. So this next slide kind of touches on our sustainability practices. So we are a certified B Corporation. So I always like to throw this in there. So if you're not familiar, B Corps are for-profit companies that are certified by the nonprofit B Lab to meet rigorous standards of social and environmental performance, accountability, and transparency. So basically what all that means is we are just committed to trying to help the world, help the earth as much as we can, do things in a sustainable way, and really kind of reviewing all of our practices on a regular basis to make sure that we're upholding these practices and keeping our commitment to the B corporations. If you're not familiar with B Corps, look them up. It's a great community of businesses who are really just trying to do better business for the world that we all share. So if you're interested in any of those, I definitely recommend you checking them out. It's a great community and a great way to kind of use your dollars to make this world that we're sharing a better place. All right. So who are we? This slide is kind of a trick question because Sarah's name is misspelled on here. So I am Chelsea Bennett. I am the brand engagement manager for Lulu.
Hi, everybody. I'm Sarah Gilbert. I'm the e-commerce marketing manager. And, it's kind of funny. We're going to go today over lots of small details about e-commerce and opening your own publishing business and store and what to do about that. And the details matter. So just pardon the missing R from my first name here.
Yes, yeah, that was a trick question to make sure everyone is paying attention. All right, so are you ready to get started?
Yeah, let's do it. So, the first two topics we're going to touch on here, I just wanted to give you a little bit of a bit about these, and they're more of like kind of the boring housekeeping topics when it comes to starting your own e-commerce business, your e-commerce book business, but they are nonetheless very important. So these are sometimes things that will pop up during tax season or when it comes to housekeeping items that you have to take care of as far as forming a business. So we did want to touch on some of these things kind of quickly, but also wanted to point out to you that, of course, you need to reference local experts and your local governments for these kinds of things because, of course, they vary. So I wanted to talk about researching tax information. So, as you're the business owner, when you have your own e-commerce book business, it's important to understand your local, state, and federal tax requirements. And for those of you who are international, right now, you may have another municipality or something else that goes along that you would also need to consider for this. So a lot of times, if you're in the States, you can find this on the Internal Revenue Service website or with your local state Department of Revenue. So there are a lot of tools that make it easy. So if you're in the beginning of stages of setting up like your website, your e-commerce platform, make sure you check into how the platform handles tax collection. So a lot of times, thankfully, there are like built-in tools already that will calculate and collect for you within these platforms. They want to make it easy for you. So they do, they take all the steps they can to do it. Or sometimes they have apps within the platforms that you can add that will make tax calculation easy for you as well. But if there's any doubt, of course, check with your accountant or local tax authority. And then the last thing I wanted to mention too is when you are considering where you want to sell books, online is basically anywhere. But if you need to restrict any geographies for tax implications, or, Lulu's a global business, we'll ship anywhere. So, but if you want to sell anywhere as well, you also need to make sure that you're considering any kind of tax implications that may happen for international sales.
All right, thank you. So as Sarah said, these first two things we're going to talk about are, again, we'll give you kind of some guidelines and best practices, but it's so important to research where you are and make sure this is aligning with, the municipalities and areas that you are in, especially for our international audience. This is going to differ, of course. It differs from state to state in the US, so I'm sure it will change when you go overseas. So I'm going to talk a little bit about how to set up an LLC now, very broad strokes here. But an LLC or a limited liability corporation can provide you with similar legal protections as a corporation, but allows you to run your company as a small business. So starting out, this can be really advantageous as you kind of start navigating these waters of your book business and what that's going to look like for you. So creating an LLC is a multi-step process that I'm outlining here. But again, as Sarah mentioned, we do want to stress that we're not experts on this. And if you're interested in setting up your LLC, use this as a starting point for you to do your own research. So one of the things to note, it's going to be really important to check with your Secretary of State to be sure of what is required for you. And so we'll talk a little bit later about our e-commerce solutions through Lulu. One of them is through Shopify. So you don't need to set up an LLC to set up a Shopify store. But the reason that we're giving you this information is because we want to set you up with a foundation to grow your business. That's sort of what all this is geared towards and all this is about. And next week, we'll follow this up with how you can scale your business with Lulu. So that these will kind of be in tandem if you're interested in that. Same bat time, same bat place as this one is taking place. So again, we really want to lay the groundwork for you to grow a business that is sustainable and that you're able to maintain. So I'll go through these steps here with just, again, some general information. So the first step is choosing a business name. So obviously this is a good starting point, but what you want to consider here is just be sure you're choosing something that's not already in use and that is compliant with the requirements of your state. So a quick Google search can tell you common terms or things you might want to stay away from or steer clear from. So again, just take the time to be intentional about the business name you're choosing and make sure you're not conflicting with any other businesses that may be already established. Step 2 is to create and file articles of organization. So again, this will vary from state to state, or I would imagine country to country, but this is the basic document where you put all the pertinent information about your business, like the name, address of the owner or owners of the business, and then file that. So you're really kind of legitimizing your efforts to create this business. Step 3 is to appoint a registered agent. So this is essentially going to be the point of contact for your business for any legal matters or correspondence. So if you're setting up and you're going to manage your own business, that would be you, obviously. But if you're setting up, so relevant to our conversation we'll be having today, if you're setting up your own bookstore or your own imprint, then you may have a couple other folks that are stakeholders. So you're going to want to pick one person that will be the recipient for all of the legal correspondence or information that you would be getting from your state or governance. So step 4 is pay associated fees, and know that you knew this was coming. We're dealing with the government here, so you're going to be paying money. So pay associated fees. So this again is going to vary from location to location. It can be as little as $100 to start out. So hopefully you're in that state because that would be great. So the next one, I said step 5-ish because this is sort of almost seems archaic as I was reading through this. But some states require you to create an LLC operating agreement. Or I'm sorry, I'm getting ahead. So some states require you to publish a notice of intent. So in some of the research I was doing, it can be, literally publishing a letter that goes in the newspaper that tells people that you're going to start this company. That is not required everywhere. So that's why there's this 5-ish and not a solid step for everyone. So again, be sure to research the specifics for your state. And then the last piece here is to create an LLC operating agreement. So this document may not be required for your filing, but it essentially lays out the responsibility of each owner of the LLC and can be useful if any disagreements pop up. So again, this is really more relevant or applicable to folks who are interested in creating a company or an LLC that will have multiple stakeholders and managers, if you will. So it's, even if it's not required, if you are entering into this business with several different people who will be kind of acting on that managerial or C-suite level, you want to outline what responsibilities are going to fall to every person so that if, probably won't happen to you, but say something happens or there's a disagreement, you have a document that you can reference to say, well, at the beginning we said that this person was going to take care of this and this person was going to take care of this. So you have that to kind of back up any discrepancies that may come forward in the future. But again, I'm sure that all of you are only entering into business with best friends who never argue. So just consider. So that is a little bit about LLCs. Again, with a caveat, do your research, please.
Great. Thanks so much, Chelsea. So what to know about shipping and logistics? So I'm going to assume that because you were able to log into a webinar today, that you've probably ordered something online before. And if you've done that, you've gone through the checkout process, you await the thank you email, then you look forward to the shipping email and then maybe a package at your door at that point. So there are a few things that I want you to know about the shipping and logistics business when it comes to books, and specifically print-on-demand books. We already have a lot of Lulu customers on this webinar, so you may be familiar with print-on-demand. And then as Chelsea said, we're B Corp, we're associated to being very friendly to the earth, which print-on-demand tends to be, because books are not printed through Lulu until the order is placed. There's no warehouse that contains copies of anybody's books They are printed at the print facility closest to the ship destination at the time they are ordered. So the printing process takes between 3 and 6 business days. So the print on demand shipping timeline, it's really important that you manage these expectations with your customers. So it'd be great if you're creating an online bookstore at some point to let your customers know, hey, this is not an overnight process. You can say this in however you want to say it best, but, let them know that this is going to take a few business days to print, and then it's going to be on the way to them. There are a few ways to set up shipping rates. And so if we kind of back up for just a minute, think about this in the fact that you are the merchant in this relationship. So, you are, and this gets to my next point too, logistically, you're the person who is going to be the point of sale contact. You're going to be the one who goes through any troubleshooting with your customers. And so you are also the one who gets to set the shipping rates. Now, if you are printing books through Lulu, through your e-commerce store, which some of you may or may not be doing at this point, but what that really means is that you've connected to one of our tools, whereas books are going to print when they're ordered from your store, not just Lulu. So when this happens, you get to set the shipping rate, as I said, and there's 2 ways to do it: live shipping rates or manual shipping rates. So the live shipping rate is basically a pass-through. So when your customer goes to order the books, we in the back end present your website with the shipping rates, which you can then show to your customer, and your customer can select the method of shipping they want. And then, everybody's happy, the book gets to them, and there's no surprises in that process. So, or if you want to set the rates manually, you can. And a lot of you may be saying, well, why would I want to do that? A lot of times merchants want to give their customers limited options or no options. So if you want to create the allure of free shipping when you sell something from your website, you can do this by adding the cost of a shipping rate within the price that you're charging your customer. So you're still paying for shipping when it comes to shipping the book, but the customer sees the free shipping as part of what they're being offered at that point. So if you want to play around with how you offer the shipping and how it's presented to your customer, we allow you the ability to set rates manually so that you can either give them limited options or no option at all, and you just send the book however you want it. So we talked about a little bit logistically that you're the merchant in this relationship. This means that the customer interaction is in your hands, and this can be good because one of the best things and the biggest benefits about having your own e-commerce bookstore is you get to understand who your customers are, specifically where people live who are buying your books. Maybe they interacted with you on social media ahead of the purchase, and so you get to know something about them through that specific interaction. But it also means that you have the responsibility of handling any customer issues. This is why expectations is important when you set up your e-commerce site. Be transparent, be honest, and get ahead of any issues. So, if for some reason there's a delay in shipping that you see, maybe there was an issue at the facility where the book was coming from or something, but that rarely happens, but it's good to get ahead and offer good customer service on this side as well.
Yeah, I just want to echo that. So all of these things we're talking about are really just kind of, as the webinar is titled, the things that you need to know before starting your e-commerce business, because we see so many folks that are using our e-commerce solutions, but just kind of aren't considering these things because, there's so much else that will go into it and that you're thinking about. You're excited to get your store set up. But I think, the managing expectations piece is so important because as you start your e-commerce business, it is your business. So you are, the customer facing entity or person. And so you can choose, of course, to let people know your books are coming from Lulu, but you can also white label that process. And so everyone kind of just thinks that you could be, making the books yourself. So either way that you want to navigate that, it's just really important to be thinking about how you want to interact with your customers, looking at best practices. Again, next week, we'll kind of go into this a little bit more. And even, thinking about things like a welcome series when people come to your website to start buying your books, or cart abandonment, or engagement methods that you can use to keep people involved and engaged with what you're doing at your shop. Just, again, things to be thinking about as you begin this journey to develop your own book selling business. Okay, so in that vein, next up is how to build an audience. So I'm going to go over some pointers here, and this is really going to be relevant either, regardless of if you're selling your own books, so maybe you have, a couple that are in the same genre, or if you have your own imprint where maybe you're selling several different types of books. You really want to be thinking about who are these books for. We all know the classic slogan, if you build it, they will come. I don't think that's true on the internet. You have to work a little bit harder to get people to find your little piece of real estate that you've carved out. So if you're not considering, or if you haven't really considered how to do that, I hope that these tips and these points that I'm going to go over now will help you find your niche and figure out how to reach them. I'll also note that we have videos on this and blog posts as well. So if you're not familiar with Lulu's blog, or again, our YouTube channel, check that out. There's some great resources there and some really good information. So first up is create a reader persona. So this is going to be actually very similar to, we're going to call it a reader persona, but if you were just creating an e-commerce business that wasn't dealing with books, this would just be your target audience. We have a lot of folks that come to Lulu and are so excited to write a book, and we're excited that you're writing a book too. When you ask about who is this book for, so many people will say everybody, because the book is fantastic and that it could really help and affect a wide audience. But when you're going through the process of building your audience, going wide in the beginning is not going to be as helpful to you as you might think. So creating a reader persona is essentially taking your content and thinking, who specifically is this book going to benefit? Who is going to be interested in this? Who is going to find this useful or entertaining? Or whatever you want people to get from your book, you need to start with who exactly is going to have that response or that reaction. And so I was writing a blog post the other day and kind of gave the example of, if you think about your 3 favorite people or your 3 least favorite people, probably all of them don't shop at the same place or do the same things. So when you kind of take that approach of my book is for everyone, I don't think it doesn't take a lot of, kind of thinking about the people to realize that that's not really a great approach. So creating a reader persona can really help you identify who your book is for, who your ideal reader is that you hope will find your book. And then you can start asking questions about where to find them. So this first piece is just, what are you offering them in your book, and who is going to get the most value out of it? So start there, and then really figure out who this person is, research their habits. So once you kind of have this idea of, your age demographic, the background this person is coming from, the hobbies they have, their aspirations, you really want to drill down into these things. And again, we have a video that goes really in depth with this, so I would recommend checking it out, or some blog posts. But the idea is to kind of craft this avatar of who you want to read your book. And then from there, start going through these questions to ask yourself, which is going into the research their habits, which is you want to ask yourself questions like, what other books is this person reading? Where do they go to find new books to read? What websites do they frequent? What social media platforms are they most active on? What other authors are they fans of? And how are those authors interacting with them? So this is, again, there's a very brief list of questions, but that's a great starting point and can lead you to other things. But essentially, you kind of want to take yourself on a thought experiment that's like, okay, now that I know exactly who I want to read my book, how can I find them? How can I connect with them? What other groups are they involved in online? What forums do they partake in? What email lists may they be on? What other websites are they visiting? All of these things are fair game and great questions to ask to really drill into where to find your ideal audience and how they want to be engaged with. So if you're asking what social media platforms are they most active on, maybe you're writing a thriller and you're reading or you're looking on Facebook and you see some really great Facebook groups just dedicated to the thriller genre. And then, once you're in there, you can start engaging with that audience. And doing this early is so helpful, because then once your shop is set up and when your book is out, then you've already been involved with them. So you already know exactly how to talk to them, how to advertise to them. And probably you've already had conversations indicating that you are writing a book. So they already have that interest and are going to be more likely to be interested and involved at the book launch than, when you launch the book and then you start thinking about your audience, which unfortunately we see a lot of authors do. And you're not doing yourself any favors by waiting until the book is published to think about who it's for. You can do this at any time, but it is definitely most helpful in those earlier stages. The next point is build an author website. So, probably I don't need to tell you how valuable this is. And of course, we're talking about setting up an e-commerce business online. So you have to have a website to do that. But even if you're not at the point where you're ready to integrate an e-commerce solution, having an author website is so important, because this is your pillar. This is your pillar page where people can find you. When people hear about you, as your fans rave about you, people are going to go to Google, go to Bing, whatever, and search your name. And so having a website that is clean, easy to navigate, serves up relevant information about you and the projects you're working on is so valuable. So that's really important. And the key to having an author website, I think one of the most important things to note is to make sure you have some sort of email capture mechanism within your website. So a lot of platforms where you can build your website are going to already have this built in. But if not, do yourself a favor and make sure that kind of from the beginning or as early as possible when you launch your author website, have an email capture so you can stay in touch with your readers and with your audience. So this is something that you may not have thought about, or maybe secondary, or, if you are starting out with an audience that's a bit smaller, it might be hard to justify or understand the value of this. But again, all this information we're providing is with the idea or the goal in mind that you can grow and scale this business. And email marketing is one of the most efficient and effective marketing methods that's available to you today. So when people, follow you online or follow you on social media, that's great. And there's definitely a ton of opportunities there. But when people drop in their email address, it's just a little bit more intimate. And they're saying, yes, I do want to see, I want a direct line of communication with you. And I want to know what you're up to, what you have coming next. So just a few things that may be relevant or valuable to put in an email list or an email newsletter. You could send out your blog, send out any promos that you're running on your store, book launches, excerpts, free ebook downloads. All of this is great content for emails. But again, the key is really to just have that email capture from the beginning so you can start building that email list early on. All right, next up is set up shop on social media. So based on your research for your reader persona, you should know where your audience is most active. So create accounts on those social channels if you don't have them already, and then start developing a posting schedule that has some sort of consistency. But again, in the beginning, you'll be trying out a lot of different things. But start working on posting on a regular basis and then seeing what resonates with your audience. So trying a lot of different content. Video content is some of the highest performing. So maybe you want to try out something like that. Or maybe your audience is more into text-based or GIFs or photos. So again, you're going to want to start posting things and just seeing what is going to resonate and what your audience is liking and engaging with the most. Another thing to note here is that you don't have to be on every single social media channel. You don't have to have a Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat, Parlor, whatever, whatever they are. That can be nauseating. So find the ones that are really relevant and working for your audience and be there and be active on them. Again, finding other authors similar to your genre or other businesses that are doing something similar to what you want to do. See if you can engage with them, see what they're doing, take those best practices and see if you can apply them for yourself. And my last point here is to review the data. So again, this might be something that you maybe haven't considered or not as familiar with how to do. But Google Analytics, or even if you're on social media, there are usually inherently some sort of data or analytics that are available to you that you can see. And even, if it's not on a large scale, just looking and saying, hey, this week I posted 4 times on Facebook. I know that one of these posts got more likes than all the others. What was that? How can I recreate that and keep doing that? There's obviously, you're onto something there. So keep doing what works and let go of the things that don't. So review your social media posts, how they're performing. And once you get your email list going, you can review that as well, your open rates, see what people are clicking on within the emails. And even you can take this farther with your website, SEO and SEM and things like that. Again, you can find more information about that on our YouTube channel. But these are all great things to be thinking of as you are starting to try to find your audience or start building that author brand.
Great. So let's talk about publishing basics to know before getting started. So these are things that you'll want to know before you set up an e-commerce business, book business, that have to deal with the publishing industry specifically. So we talked about that your website's going to be connected to Lulu's print on demand network. And this was something I talked about a few minutes ago. And really, this just means that everything's going to be printed within 3 to 6 business days prior to shipping. Also, the files here that you've previously had on Lulu will also work. So anything that you've published on Lulu, for anybody in here who is a current Lulu customer, if your files work on the Lulu platform, then if setting up an e-commerce book business and you want to use the Lulu method for printing your books, they'll work through that as well.
So the next thing that we're going to talk about for publishing basics are ISBNs. So I will say if you're selling your books directly through your own website, or even if you choose to sell them only through the lulu.com bookstore, you do not need an ISBN. You don't have to have one because it's not going through a distribution network. However, again, just with the kind of theme that we've been talking about growing or scaling your business, having your own ISBNs can be really advantageous, because if you buy your own ISBNs from Valker, then when people search those ISBNs, then they will see your imprint name will come up as the imprint or as the publisher of the work. So that's one thing that you might need to know. But just to get started, if you want to sell your books through Shopify or even through our print API, you do not need ISBNs. But again, I'll sort of I'll say do your research on this one and kind of think about what your goals are for your business and what that means to you, and let that dictate if you need to buy them or not. So the next point here is to buy proof copies and do end-to-end testing. So this is so important because, again, it really puts you in the mindset of your customers and of your readers as they're coming to your website. So we have a lot of authors who will want to upload their books and they get so excited and they just want to make them available for sale immediately. But we just strongly advise against that, because regardless of how many times you go through your book or look at it, I mean, I'll use our first slide as an example. You know, I think we both know how to spell Sarah, but somehow that's slipped through the cracks. So you always want to just make sure that you are double checking, triple checking, and ordering at least one print copy of every book that you're publishing and that you want to sell, so you can get it in your hands, you can see how it feels. And then, you know, I would recommend ordering a proof copy and then doing the end-to-end testing. So Sarah, feel free to hop in or correct me or add anything to this one. But essentially, when you set up your store, your e-commerce book business, you're going to want to approach this as your readers would and make sure you're giving them the easiest and most or least friction experience possible. So you want to make it easy to find your sell page. You want to make it easy to navigate your website. You don't want to have a ton of pop-ups or a lot of busy text or harsh color palettes, unless you really know how to work with that, and then maybe that's your niche. But you want to make your site easy to navigate. I mean, the term help them help you is very applicable here. When someone lands on your page and is interested in buying your book, you want to make it as easy as possible for them to get to your bookstore and make that purchase. So I don't think we've mentioned this yet, but one of the best things about using Lulu's e-commerce solutions is that you can get transactional data from your customers and from your readers. So before, selling your book through the lulu.com bookstore or through Amazon or whatever third-party distributor, because of privacy laws, Amazon can't give you the information of who's buying your products. So it's so important and it's such a value add to be able to get that transactional data. And I'll kind of go back to my email list note earlier, because when you get that transactional data, you can see who's buying your book. You can kind of predict or decipher how they got to your website, or just ask them, because you'll have their email address. You can add to your email list and do those re-engagement efforts or ask them questions and see how they found you. So when you order your proof copy, if everything looks good, you're going to want to go through the process as an end user would, or as a reader would, when they land on your website. So make sure that everything is easy to navigate. You want to make sure that as Sarah mentioned, your shipping methods make sense and are clear and easy to understand. There's not a lot of friction in the checkout process. Are they getting email confirmations, or do you want them to get an email confirmation after they buy your book? Yes, you do, I would say. So these are just things that you want to do, is just kind of take your business owner hat off, put your reader or customer hat on, go through your website, go through the process, see how easy it is, try to anticipate any problems or issues that might arise, and see if you can address them early on. And so that end-to-end testing piece is really, really important to do before you go live with your store or with your books.
Totally agree. And to add on what Chelsea just said too, it might be helpful because, if you've created the process and the site, it's going to feel familiar to you as you go in and do the end-to-end testing. But what might even be a step further is if you sit next to somebody, maybe friend, relative, a trusted a person who is going to want your book. But if you sit next to them and watch them order it and ask them to kind of, narrate out loud things that are easy, things that feel hard, where they might want more information, or anything that would feel a little bit foreign to them, to you, so that you can make improvements. It's just going to make that transaction smoother for everybody. So yeah, the end-to-end testing is incredibly important. You want to know what that experience is going to feel like for your customers. And to add on to that, the product listing is also as important. So people who order online want to feel like they are having an experience that where they can trust what is happening. And so there are some standards when it comes to the way books that are presented. So this isn't rocket science, but there are some things that you have to include when you list a book online for sale. So what that might be is what we refer to as metadata. So this is like data about the data. So this is going to be the page count. Is it a paperback? Is it a hardcover? What are the dimensions? Is it a 6x9? Is it a larger book? If there's some kind of interesting method of binding, specifically coil or something like that, that's information that they need to know. It's not the first information they need to know, though. What they really want to know before they're ordering the book is the description. So, it's important to write an enticing description that's not too long and not too short. If you want ideas on how to do this, I would say, poke around online on online bookstores, the big merchants who sell books online, as well as the books that are presented by major publishing houses, because they're doing what readers expect to see. So you can kind of get an idea, maybe it's 2 to 3 paragraphs. It's certainly not 10 paragraphs in the description. Maybe they tell you a little bit about the book and entice you to read it, but not too much. So, if you want to get ideas, go specifically to your genre and see how the books are presented in a product listing. And then that's something that's also great to sit next to somebody and review, the same person who is maybe, showing you the checkout process on their computer, that if you ask them to kind of review that as well. And, if there's anything that stands out that doesn't look uniform to book listings or product listings in general, that would be helpful information to know as well.
Perfect. All right. We've got just a couple more slides to get through, then we'll open it up for questions. So the next slide that we have is our e-commerce solutions. So if you have been intrigued about what we've been saying today, hopefully you have been, we have a couple ways that you can sell your books through your own website, and these will continue to expand as we go throughout the year in the next coming months. So right now we have two options for you. One is Shopify, our app for Shopify. And then we have our Lulu print API. So if you don't have an e-commerce or a way to do transactions through your website currently, creating a Shopify store is a great way to do that. And Shopify takes care of the e-commerce engine. And our app for Shopify, which is free, will allow you to sell your books and set up your store and sell your books directly to your readers. And then the other way to do it is with our print API. So if you have your own website and you already have an e-commerce engine, or maybe you're already doing transactions on your website, then you can plug into our print API. These essentially act the same, and the only difference is really that Shopify kind of brings the e-commerce engine with that setup, whereas with the API, you would be doing that on your own and then just plugging into our print and fulfillment network to sell your books or take orders for your books. So if you are interested in finding out more about this, you can go to lulu.com/sell/sell on your site. And then the last thing here, these are some free resources that we have. As I mentioned, our Lulu blog, we have a help center that's really great. And then you can see our Lulu University, our Lulu series on YouTube that you can check out as well. That's going to touch on a lot more information about some of the things we talked about today, specifically audience building. We've done things on e-commerce, author platform, website, e-newsletter setup, things like that. All right, and then the last slide that I have for y'all today is self-publishing webinars. So you're in one right now, believe it or not. So we do these on a pretty regular basis. If you are ever interested in seeing what our next webinar is, you can go to webinars.lulu.com to see the information about the upcoming webinars, the previous webinars, and sign up. So we've mentioned this a couple times, but next week, next Wednesday, August 4th from 12 to 1, we will be kind of doing a part 2 to what we just talked about today. And that'll be about how Lulu can help you scale your e-commerce book business. So today we really talked about the basics and laying that foundation for your business. And next week, we will move on to really what you can expect from Lulu, what we'll be doing to help you grow your business, and then what you will be doing and kind of touching on more of that, the customer-facing things and some best practices there. So I will stop sharing my screen and we will open it up for questions. All right. So Sarah, are you able to, let's see. Oh, Scott, I see the link that you dropped in there. And let's see, you're right. It's not coming up. Oh, I see. No, I didn't put any dashes in it. So I'm going to drop this in here. And I can make that a pinned comment, I think. So, Sarah, are you able to see the questions in the chat?
I am able to see the first. Oh, yes, I am able to see the questions in the chat. So I can take it over from here if you'd like to. I'm going to kind of scroll down to some of the first questions that were asked. I'll try to get through as many as possible in the next 15 minutes or so. And then we can just take it from there.
Perfect. Thank you.
So let's start with Sabu. Is there someone I can speak to at Lulu to help me determine the best approach for how to distribute my book? Yeah, there are a variety of distribution options that we offer at Lulu. And, today we were talking about how to sell direct from your website and setting up your e-commerce business. But if you're looking for, in general, to sell everywhere and have it in as many available outgoing options as possible, global distribution through Lulu is maybe where you'd want to start. And our knowledge base on lulu.com, if you go to lulu.com and scroll down to connect at the very bottom or get help, then you can start there with going to some help articles about how to distribute your book. But the process is you can submit your book for distribution on Lulu, and then we'll coordinate with you if your book is eligible for distribution and if we're going to push it through to the distribution channels. And then it's a back and forth from there with our specific distribution team. So let's see here. Tamika asked, how long is the shipping when done manually without the options given to customers? So the shipping timeline, and I hope it wasn't too confusing when I kind of jumped into all the different ship methods, because I would say that shipping is probably one of the more complicated things that we experience with when it comes to setting up a website where you're the merchant and you're in charge of that fulfillment piece as well. The way that the book is produced is it is shipped on the same timeline, regardless of what options you offer your customer. So the different options only have to do with how your customer is paying for it. So if you're doing a live shipping rate, we're just passing on our rates to you. And manual means you're setting the rate. It doesn't have neither of those have to do anything with the timing on it. The timing is still going to be between 3 to 6 business days. And then it'll ship at whatever method you select. Now, that does get to also that we offer a variety of shipping methods. So there's, regular mail, priority mail, there's FedEx, there's UPS. But then again, keep in mind that an overnight FedEx package doesn't mean it's going to come overnight from the point of a customer ordering from the website. That means it's going to be overnighted after the book is printed and boxed and ready to go. So let's continue. Audrey asks, so my target market is anyone interested in World War history, anyone who loves comedy as well as humor, as well as something thought-provoking, and the realm of readers that like to support indie writers. Well, you're in a good place. Is that a good start? And how could I attract these people? Yes, Audrey, this is like, writing the book, sometimes it feels like it's the hardest part of the process. But honestly, after speaking to authors for more than 12 years, it has to do with getting the book out there and connecting to your readers. So it is a good start. So really you want to hit, and I'm going to say this in the point of reference of writing the product description and also connecting with your audience, is you want to hit the what's in it for me for your customers. So the what's in it for me is what are they going to get out of reading the book? So if somebody who is interested in history, but maybe wants to take a lighter take on it, then you're going to want to include that in the description. And then, of course, if it's somebody who wants to support indie writers, it's a great idea to have your book available on websites that are indie-like. So really the heart of that is the direct consumer efforts of having it available on your own website. So that's going to be something that you're going to want to do is have the book available through your social media, your website, because it doesn't get more indie than going from the author to the customer. Okay, so let's keep going. Audrey's got a couple questions here. Audrey says, what's the good platform for a newsletter? I use MailChimp, but is there another good one? A lot of people do use MailChimp. That's a great one if you want to create a newsletter. There are others out there. Sometimes there's a free model and a paid model, depending on how many subscribers you are. So definitely do that information as you look to scale business. What do you recommend as far as teasers and putting up excerpts online? I want people to have some samples, but I don't want to just get everyone all my work free. What's a good balance here? So yes, having maybe a very short teaser is a great idea. Also, if you want to flip it out with content that is that comes from reviews that you might have or what other people are saying, people will tend to want to use social proof as well as the reviews that are generated from books. So they all not only want to see what you say about your book, but they want to see what other people are saying about that too. So use that as well. Let's see here. Shaylin Barr asked, if using Lulu's ISBNs, can I sell books in other platforms? Yes, you can. If you want to use Lulu's ISBNs, you can use our global distribution system. You would have to use our distribution network. So that's going to be something that you'll want to consider when you review the distribution guidelines that we have. Let's see here. I'm looking through some more questions that maybe we haven't gotten to specific topics. Let's see here. Ooh, Terry, that's a private question, but let's see here. Go to charity, just kind of tax implications. Do I absolutely need a website, or can I just promote via social media and word of mouth? Wow, this is a big one. You don't absolutely need a website. However, it depends on how you want to scale your business. Every major author has a website, and it's something that it does not have to be, 20 tabs, a million pages. You can just create something very simple. If you want to start basic and have maybe a few pages on your website, including the books listing and about the author, what's coming next. Maybe if you want to start blogging from your site, those are some good basic components to include on a website. So you don't absolutely need one, but I would say that if you do want to scale and grow your business and grow your credibility as an author, it is nice to have a website. And it's definitely going to set you apart from those who don't. Okay, let's see here. Going through the ones that are public. Lisa said, I tried to connect to the API when it first came out. I was not able to get any help with connecting my website on Kajabi. I do not want to create a new website on Shopify. Okay, so one of the things that Chelsea covered in one of the slides towards the end had to do with the different methods that you can connect your book to your platform to Lulu. So what this means is somebody's ordering your book from your website specifically, and it's being printed through Lulu. We have a built-in app on Shopify, and really we've made it very simple where you can open a Shopify store, get the free Lulu app, create a product, start selling. When people order the book on Shopify, it is then sent to Lulu for printing, and it goes direct to your customer. The other option that Chelsea talked about was the API. Now, the API accomplishes the same task, but it's not a built-in app. This means that we are providing you the actual code for you to go in and program that cart checkout process to integrate with Lulu's printers. It is a very technical setup. It typically requires somebody with programming, developing skills, somebody who can read different types of coding languages to go in and set that process up, whereas the Lulu Print Network talks to your cart checkout network. So it's kind of built from scratch at that point. So it doesn't connect direct to Kajabi. So, but I would say let's look forward to the future, Lisa. We're hoping to develop some more tools to make this type of process easier. If you don't want to create a new website on Shopify just yet, we might have some things coming that will make the API integration a little bit simpler for you. Okay. Ooh, good question. What on global content laws? For example, religious or decency laws, and on comparative global copyright protection law. So you as the merchant, we're going to hit this ball back over to your side of the court too. So when it comes to copyright and things like that, you are the content owner and creator on this. So you really need to make sure you're covered. Now, having said that, it is coming from our printer. So there is a subset of content that we won't print. And this has been something that Lulu has had in place since inception. And, this is content that is unlawful or something of a disturbing nature. And more information is available on the Lulu website. So that does not change when you're connected to our print network. We still will continue to, have the same rules in place when it comes to the type of content we will print. Terry says, I published a Christian book, which is a narrow niche, and 100% of the proceeds go to charity. Do I still have to charge tax? That's a great question, Terry. So perhaps is the answer. So if you are setting up some kind of tax-free entity on your website through, now Terry, I don't know if you are in the US or if you are outside of the US, but if you're local and country laws allow you to not charge tax on that, if you provide us with that tax exemption paperwork, then we can also pass on that exemption through the Lulu network. So for some reason, if you are exempt from tax in a certain state or geography where you're selling the book, providing us with that documentation, we can pass through that benefit to you. But the documentation needs to be more than something cut from the local tax laws that you just send us. It needs to be actually referencing your organization and sent to us with specific dates on it and everything that wouldn't be entailed in that process. Okay. Let's see here. Ben asks, for building audience, does having an online reading event work? It can. Having an online reading event works. However, I want you to consider what that might look like, because if you are an unknown author and you offer an online reading event, it depends on how that's structured. So, you don't want to offer something where somebody can come hear you read the book for an hour. It needs to be an engaging type of event where maybe people have read part of the book already, or it's a Q&A. I would set up a way that your audience can engage with you in that type of event to make it more of a discussion. And with that's something that you'll be able to hopefully bring more readers and engagement, and then ask for reviews. One of the best things you can do from an event is ask for others to push out what their thoughts are on the book. And I know shameless self-promotion can feel a little weird sometimes for people, because we're all not used to, being able to go out and brag about your book all the time. But, asking for reviews is a great way to get things moving along with book sales as well. Okay, so let me keep going. I think I've got a lot of the questions I've covered. There's one here, and I see a lot of people asking about ISBNs. I'm going to read Alfonso's question, and then we'll wrap it up since we're almost to 1 o'clock. I have a question about ISBNs. Is there someone to talk about with this? I read through your FAQs. Looks like some books can get an ISBN and others don't. Like, I plan to print my spiral bound. Do I need to buy my own ISBN, or can I use a Lulu ISBN? So if I can give you a little bit of background on the ISBN process at Lulu, and the ISBNs that Lulu offers can go on books that are eligible for our distribution network. Not every format and size and page count combination we offer is eligible. So for instance, spiral bound books, I'm not sure if any spiral bound book is eligible, but there's information on our site about which books are. So for instance, a black and white 6x9 book, probably the most common size in the United States, and the most popular format size, is eligible for distribution. So you can have a free ISBN added to that, or a Lulu ISBN. Bringing your own ISBN to your book doesn't make a difference if it's not eligible for global distribution. The formats still remain the same as far as which ones we're able to push out through distribution networks. I hope that answers that question. anyway, it's 1. And I just want to tell everybody, thank you so much for attending today. We hope you'll join us next week when we're going to talk more about how to scale your business, some tricks about how to grow it, how to engage with your customers, possible readers, buyers, and what to do as your business grows. So thanks again for coming today, and we look forward to connecting with you in the future. Take care, everyone.